Good evening, council, and those in the gallery. We'd like to call the meeting to order. It's a regular council meeting for April 13th, and we're going to start the meeting tonight with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of our agendas. So we'll start with that moment of reflection now. All right, thank you very much. So for the agendas, we have two consent agenda, motion to approve the consent agenda. When I think Councillor Orr had a request to pull from the consent agenda.
Yes, I was wondering if we could pull from the consent agenda the letter of correspondence from the Public Safety Minister and move that to new business, just so that we can have further discussion about our response to that correspondence.
So motion to, right, that's a motion to approve the consent agenda while pulling the one item. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll call the question on favor. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then the regular meeting agenda. I don't believe there was any other amendments. So a motion to approve with the one additional new business item. Would like to make the motion. Oh, Councilor Burdette.
Just if we could rearrange the order to move the
Okay.
in-camera above new business.
Yeah, and we'll also rearrange to the in-camera portion to in front of new business. Motion for that. Councilor Fox makes the motion with the two amendments. Call to question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. For the good of council, anyone have something they wish to share with the whole council? Councilor Patience, yes.
Yeah, thank you. First, I just want to remind everyone that Wednesday, April 22nd, from 4:30 to 6 is the community cleanup, and it'll be followed by a barbecue at 6 p.m. behind the town office. And details can be found on our social media feeds. So just a reminder to everybody, if we can get out and help, that's great. And I also want to take the opportunity to throw out a well done to Maureen Chambers, who at last week's Canadian Folk Music Awards in Calgary was inducted into the Canadian Order of Folk. And most of us obviously know Maureen. She's been a musical kingpin in the community for as long as I can remember, and she's been a huge advocate of folk music in southern Alberta and worked long and hard with the Southern Alberta Folk Club. She was also a main driver and entertainment coordinator for the South Country Fair for years and years. Tremendous artist in her own right. Her album Cracked Rearview is still one of my all-time favorites, and maybe her biggest contribution is her two talented children, Jillian and Ryland, along with Trent, obviously. So big shout out to Maureen Chambers, a well-deserved award.
I would agree. Congratulations to Maureen. Anyone else have something they wish to share? Councillor Fox.
I had Maureen on my list as well, but I also would like to recognize Candace Sorowitz. She was recognized as the 2026 chapter champion in celebration of Oncology Nursing Day. She's a resident here in Fort Macleod who works at the Jack Eddy Cancer Center, so just a shout out to her as well.
Councillor Orr.
A couple of things. In the consent agenda, you saw a committee report of the FCSS March 11th meeting. We've talked about it, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the FCSS, Sharon Brown and her team, who had in last month secured 423 plus $1,000 in supporting 3 programs. And so kudos to them for that. It's a real contribution to our community. And then on Saturday evening, past April 11th, was able to attend the 100th celebration of the Elks of Canada. Their local unit has been around for 100 years, along with their companion organization, the Royal Purple. It was a good event, well attended, and again, thanks to all those who've been involved in those organizations over these many years, and for the vibrancy that continues even to today, and how they're working to add to our community. A particular note was an emphasis on the young Elks who were striving to coalesce and coordinate the service in our community by the young people in our town. So that was very, very well done, very entertaining.
Very good, thank you. I do want to apologize to the Elks community. I had every intention of being able to attend on Saturday nights, but yeah, it totally slipped my mind and was not able to do. Yard work kind of swallowed us over, and so I did talk to one of their members on tonight and apologize as well. Any other comments for the good of council? Councillor Monteith?
I'm sure everyone's been waiting with bated breath about my course I took on the assessment review panel, and I'm happy to announce I passed, so I'm locked in for 3 more years.
Congratulations.
Well
Jim.
done.
That was very nicely done. All right. There's, Councillor Poitras.
Yeah, just a couple more things quickly. A couple weeks ago was the grand reopening at the Empress Theatre. We had a wonderful evening, had some delegates out, and an evening of conversation and touring of the Empress, and entertainment as well. So that was a great job by the Empress Theatre Society and the staff over there for putting on a wonderful evening, showing off our beautiful new theatre. And then the other item is this weekend is the annual Stars volleyball tournament going on in town here. So a little bit of a smaller affair this year because of the arena renovations, but still over 30 teams coming out, I believe. And so that will be happening at the schools at WA Day and FP Walsh Thursday through Sunday this weekend. So come out and support.
I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Queen's Restoration Group. I noticed this week that they have new windows going in, and that's a huge milestone. You can hardly tell in some ways the difference between the new and the old, because they're quite similar in style and shape. But that's a big milestone, and look forward to their group being able to see that project through. That'll be a big game changer for the Main Street. All right. There's no other comments. We will move on then to our delegations for tonight, to which we have 2, and we're going to start with our auditor. And we'd like to hand it over to Kelvin Scott with Avail LLP to present our 2025 audited financial statements.
Thanks for having me. We're going to hope that this clicker works properly today. It's going to be great. I know it. There we go. We're fine already. Your first slide is me, in case you didn't know who I was. Kelvin Scott. I'm a partner with Avail. Our agenda for today, we will run through the auditor's report. We will touch on the financial results. We'll go through the indicators of financial condition, which is comparative figures, comparing your town to other towns. We'll run through the management letter, post-audit letter as well. And as always, if you have questions along the way, feel free. We don't need to wait till the end. You can stop me at any point in time, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So the first thing we'll look at is the audit report. Once again, we had a clean opinion, so our unmodified opinion, which states that these financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So this is what we're looking for. This report also says that management's responsible for the statements, that you as a board or council are responsible for management oversight, And as auditors, we are responsible for identifying the risk of material misstatement, for understanding your internal controls, for evaluating the policies and estimates within the financial statements, concluding on the going concern assumptions, so your ability to continue on into the future, and evaluating the presentation of the financial statements. And we had no issues with any of those. Now we jump into the numbers. So the statement of operations for the year, this would normally be a statement of profit or loss. The first thing we'll look at is just revenues. So overall revenues this year were up about $1.8 million from last year. It's always good to see revenues up. Taxes increased about $473,000 from last year. And this was a budgeted increase. One of the big ticket items that we'll see for an increase here would be user fees and sales of goods. We're gonna have about a $2.7 million increase here, resulting from land sales. So last year there was about $670,000 worth of land sales, and this year we had about 3.2. So significant increase in land sales this year. Government grants are down a little bit. This just depends on what's coming in for grants from year to year. Our investment income, we had a decrease in investment income balances, so we'll see a little bit lower there. The other large ticket item we'll see at the very last line, the gain on sale of capital, which is a decrease from last year. And the majority of this relates to non-cash ARO adjustments or asset retirement obligation adjustments. So if you have reduced your ARO liability this year, and as a result, we're gonna see a gain on sale of those tangible capital assets. So a decrease in that liability shows up as income. It's a non-cash item, but it shows up there. Confusing for sure, because we're just reducing a liability, but it shows up as an income statement item. So that is one large, about $1.1 million change there. But overall, revenue is up about $1.8 million from last year. So good to see a good increase there. On the expense side, we're not going to see very much change at all from last year. So we're down about $80,000 on overall expenses. So on $10 million, it's very close to what we were the year before. Wages were up about $90,000. That's about a 2.7% increase from last year. So basically COLA adjustments coming through there. Our contracted services were down about $123,000. The prior year, we had additional repairs and maintenance. We had some additional engineering fees and some costs related to ARO as well, so asset retirement costs. Those were all in there. That didn't happen this year, so we'll see that decrease. Last year, materials, on section 4, but we would have had some costs related to the 150th celebration that was going on. Those obviously weren't there this year, so we'll see another decrease there. And the biggest other change we'd see is other expenditures. We'll see an increase of about $55,000. And in here, we're looking at the tax incentive programs. So the non-resident and multi-resident tax incentives are going to be included in other expenditures in your financial statements. So overall, for operating expenditures, we'll see, again, an $80,000 decrease. It's always good to see expenses going down as well. What that looks like now, we're going to see our revenue being up and expenses down. So we'll see an increase in the excess of revenues over expenditures, your surplus for the year. We also had capital revenues come in to support some capital projects. I believe we had about $4.5 million of capital this year. And that's some of the revenue that came in for it. So the overall excess of revenue over expenditures is about $4 million this year, 4.1 versus 1.8 last year. Now is the time to explain it. So everybody's favorite part, these statements include all of the amortization expenses. So this is going to be non-cash items. It also includes, as mentioned before, that asset retirement obligation. We reduced the liability, which has created income. And it also does not include debt repayments or the purchase of capital items. Yes, Councillor Monteith.
Why doesn't the adjustment in that go through the surplus as opposed to running it through the P&L when it's non-cash and not relevant?
Great question. I would love to tell a good reason for it, but it needs to run through there. I don't know why I'm going like that. I can move it back. Is that better?
That might be better for a different angle. Is that better?
Yes. The requirement would be to show it that way. We can't just run it through the net equity, as that wouldn't be following the standards, and then we'd have to qualify on you, which we don't want a qualified statement. So we need to flow through the income statement in order to show it. In the past, years and years ago, we would have seen it as a separate capital statement and operating statement, as we always say. But now it very much muddies the waters, if you will, on what those surpluses or deficits would be.
It's extremely frustrating though when you get somebody in and they estimate the cost, and then after 2 years, we're writing off more than $3 million because it was overestimated, because that's playing with numbers, it's playing with surplus and that type of thing.
Absolutely. We'll put it up there. Hopefully it'll be good. Huh? Doesn't like my voice, but I like the things. Perfect. There we go. Thank you very much for the input. Otherwise, I'll just talk really loud. We do a quick analysis for you on an annual basis too, just to show where the capital and operating surpluses come from. As per usual, we'll have a capital deficit, as we'll have accretion expenses and ARO related costs. We've also shown any of the transfers that have been done this year coming through from operations or capital. But generally, we're going to have operations funding capital with amortization coming through a significant level, and funding our capital from previous year's reserves and such. For the statement of the cash flow statement, which should be, oh, you don't have the cash flow statement in here? Perfect. I updated this to have the cash flow statement, but in the cash flow statement, we can see that when we take out all of our adjustments, we do have a positive net cash flow for the year. And with that cash flow, we generated about $4.5 million worth of positive cash flows, and spent it on capital assets this year. So overall, there was an increase in cash of about $500,000 from operating. We see that when we look at the financial assets. So cash is up about $500,000 thanks to the surplus that occurred this year. Our taxes and grants, there is an increase in taxes, but it is all current. This is not because of late payment. It's all just a timing issue with current payments. Trade and other receivables will always be varying depending on what's happening as well, if there's grant receivable at year end or not. One of the significant changes here we'll see is land held for resale. So there was vacant industrial land purchased this year for about $582,000. So we'll see that increase in the land held for sale. The largest portion of the land sold generally had a very minimal cost on it. So we're not going to see a lot come out of here this year, but we do have the addition this year. So that did increase. But overall, the financial assets are going to be up from last year, which is great to see. About $733,000 from last year. So an improving asset balance is always good. On the liabilities side, we're going to see a decrease in liabilities. So this is much like your statement of revenues and expenses. We had increasing revenues and decreasing expenses. Here we have increasing assets and decreasing liabilities, so always good. Accounts payable, we're going to see a small increase with capital happening. So a lot of the payments related to phase 2 of McLeod Landing were payable at the end of the year, so just a timing difference, but those are outstanding. We had additional deposits related to McLeod Landing as well, so a couple $100,000 sitting in there. Our deferred revenue is up, and we'll look quickly at the note right after this slide to show you where that's from. This is just additional grants coming in that had yet to be spent. We made regular long-term debt repayments, so we saw a decrease there. And then this asset retirement obligation, as we talked about, came down significantly this year with a change in estimate of what that was going to take in the future to remediate some of these assets. Overall, the town is in a net financial debt position. So if you had to take all of your assets and what you own at this point in time, not including tangible capital assets, buildings, roads, everything else, and pay off your liabilities, you'd be short about $236,000 at this point. But notably, that includes an asset retirement number of $4.6 million, which makes this somewhat misleading, given that is not going to be spent right away. In my mind, that's not a current asset by any means. Much like the long-term debt, we wouldn't have to repay this right away. So it's not a significant issue, I would say, your net financial debt position. It's improved significantly this year, but still in a net financial debt position. And essentially mainly due to this asset retirement obligation. Before the standard change, you were definitely in a net asset position. This is just a quick rundown of what your deferred revenue is. So this is going to be unspent externally restricted grants at the end of the year. So the largest portion of which is going to be the local government fiscal framework. So there's $500,000 sitting in there available for 2026 spending. The next thing we'll look at is your non-financial assets. So this is going to be prepaids, inventory, tangible capital assets. The prepaids this year is the early release of funds to the Historical Association. So their 2006 allotment was prepaid, so that's going to be sitting in prepaids this year. Not a significant change in inventory. Intangible capital assets, again, we had about $4.5 million worth of additions. McLeod Landing being about 1.9 at the end of December. We had the Empress Theater facelift coming in at about 580 at the end of December. The 150th South Park was about 246. We had some arena replacement. The floor replacement was in here as well for about $215,000. All of things which were mentioned earlier, so it's a nice little segue into what was going on. And we also had about $1.3 million of various water, wastewater, water, roads, sewer, gravel, paving, paths that happened during the year. So a lot of that type of work all added up to about $1.3 million, but a lot of capital work done this year for improvements. On the bottom, we can see here that the unrestricted surplus has increased thanks to the surplus for the year. And how that looks is unrestricted surplus stayed about the same. The internally restricted reserves have increased a fair amount this year, so we'll see that going from just about 6 to 8, so about a $2 million increase there. And in equity and tangible capital assets, also an increase there with the $4.5 million of capital spending this year. So overall, the town equity has improved since last year. We'll just briefly look at your reserves, just to give you an idea of where those funds went. So we can see that on the operating side, the biggest change is going to be sitting in the stabilization and contingency, which is up about $900,000 from last year. And on the capital side, we'll see an overall increase of about $1.1 million between the various capital reserves that have been funded this year. We always just run through the debt limit quickly. We can see that your debt limit is going to be up this year, and that's a result of having increased debt. So this is generally going to be 1.25 times your revenue. So as your revenue increases, your debt limit increases. And we always give you a friendly reminder that if you are looking for new debt, to make sure to normalize this number, adjust it for your capital, land sales, and other items that would be one-time revenues, so that we're not flirting with the debt limits that are in place. And the last of the notes we'll show you just quickly to see your current asset retirement obligation is sitting here. We're at about 4.6, and that's a change from 5.7 from the year before. And this will continue to decrease over time with accretion expense coming into play. Those are your financial statements. On an overall basis, we're looking in a healthy position. We'll run through the indicators of financial conditions. You can see how this compares to other towns and what those indicators look like for your municipality. So the first ones we'll look at are going to be sustainability indicators. The assets to liabilities, this is going to be total assets. So this is going to be your financial assets, your cash, your investments, and your tangible capital assets. And when we compare to liabilities, we're on the lower side in comparative to other municipalities, other towns. So generally, your comparative is going to be to an average of all towns in Alberta. It's going to be the red line. The green line is going to be comparative town average, so within a size of about 25% on either side, 25% bigger, 25% lower. And the purple line will be any municipality within the same population range, again, on 25%. So we're looking lower here, and this is going to be, once again, due to your higher ARO balance that you would have. So that asset retirement obligation that the town has is significantly high, which is where this drop happened, as you can see. And we have a comment. Feel free.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind council, when we did do a review on the asset retirement obligation that other communities, especially other communities our size, chose to put on their statements, many of them had much lower liabilities, and some of them chose not to disclose any liability. So that's why you see that huge change from 22 to 23, and then it was slowly riding up. But I think we have chosen, I mean, obviously it wasn't a perfect process, but I think we're coming to the most realistic number for us to have on our financial statements, even though other communities are doing it differently.
Very true. It is not recorded on some municipal statements, and others chose to do it very differently in saying, we just believe we don't have any, and they've supported it that way. So I believe you've done it right, correctly, you have followed the standards, but it does change your numbers based off of this. Yes, sir.
I'd be interesting to see what practice review would say about those two little items that towns are not doing.
I would very much like to see what they've done, because I've seen, if it hasn't been implemented, you would think that there would be a qualified opinion. I've seen statements that do not have a qualified opinion on it for it and have just not implemented it. So we'll see within the 3-year review, hopefully it will get picked and there would be some sort of ramification, or hopefully they have good justification for not having it within their statements. The financial assets to liabilities, this is going to not include the tangible capital assets, so just financial assets liabilities. It does include ARO again, so we will see that we're lower. Our next slide is the one that excludes, this is going to be current ratio, so our current assets, current liabilities. So we're removing the ARO that's here, and we can see that once we remove that factor for your town, you are right in line with all other municipalities your size, completely average in comparison to them once we've taken out that ARO. So this is a great indicator for your municipality, specifically having that in there to say, now we're on track, we're right in line with everybody else once we remove that ARO factor for us. The net debt to annual revenues, again, we're sitting in a net debt position. This is going to sound repetitive because of our ARO. So we're going to show lower here. If we adjust for that, again, we're going to be right in line with everybody else on an average basis. The net debt to taxable assessment, again, ARO is going to bring our net debt, put us in a net debt position. However, with the taxable assessment increasing, we are getting closer to the average. And if we were to adjust again for the ARO, we would be in a much higher position in comparison. Operating expenses to the taxable assessment. So we'll see here that your town is right in line with average, if not a little bit lower this year, which is good to see. And this will also include amortization of tangible assets. We're adding a lot of capital, and on average, in comparison to the taxable assessment, running very good, a little bit lower than what the comparable average is. So we're running smooth, operating efficiently, good use of your expenses in here. So this is a good indicator, especially if it's coming downwards for you. The public debt charges to revenue, we're going to see with the new debt we've had in the past couple of years that we're going to be a little bit higher here. As debt is repaid, this will continue to drop back down again. But on average, we're going to have a little bit higher debt in comparison to the comparable municipalities here. Yes, sir. So that's the debt servicing. So that is your current repayments for debt. And because there was no changes in debt, that's going to be the annual amounts that get repaid. So that is correct. Because there was no new debt, that same payment will be this year. Off the top of my head, I'm happy. The debt to revenue percentage as well, we can see is coming down. So as we're repaying debt and revenue is going up, we're seeing this trend in the right direction. So you're getting more income in and using it to pay down that debt on a regular basis. The debt you have is also being invested to generate future revenues. So it's not that it's bad debt necessarily. It's just the timing of the debt right now. In a few years, this will slide. You'll come back down and it'll be looking better. The own source revenues to taxable assessment, very positive here. So this removes government funding and says, what are you doing on your own for revenues in comparison for total revenue? And your land sales here are going to help you be significantly above and have been for quite a few years above the average on a regular basis. Government transfers to total revenues, you're going to be lower here, which means you are less dependent on the government. And this is essentially the inverse of the last one. So if you were generating a lot of your own revenues in comparison to government revenues, it's going to be lower. So again, a good indicator to be much lower than other municipalities. And a couple left will show reserves to total accumulated surplus. So in general, you're at 14% versus 11%. So a solid amount higher. We have good reserves here, solid reserves. You're putting away funds for future projects, both operating and capital. And in comparison to other municipalities, a little bit higher. So you are doing a good job of saving. And all your reserves are cash covered between cash and investments. You're not putting away money you don't have. You are putting away money that you do have. So this is good to see. Yes.
Are there many communities that are not in that position?
There are smaller communities that are not in that position, and some choose, depending on the community, not to put as much away. They might see it as they don't want to be taxing and then saving people's money, and they think it's a bad thing to have reserves. But then they get into situations where emergencies happen or construction needs to happen and there just aren't funds available and they have to find delaying or taking on debt to do any projects that way. It makes it very difficult to plan if you don't have any savings whatsoever. And being within reason of the comparable population average and town average, nothing that you're doing is saying we're putting away too much or overtaxing to save. We're putting the right amount away in comparison to everybody else. So you're not significantly ahead. So one counselor once told me, you're healthy, not wealthy. You're putting the right, we're not taking a bunch of money and saving it from everybody. We're not being overly concerned with overtaxing and putting it away. So it's a good place to be. And the last one we'll look at is just the accumulated surplus available. So this is going to be your reserves and your unrestricted surplus. So a surplus that has yet to be put into reserves or dedicated for any specific purpose. We're sitting about 10 million, 10.8. And comparatively, the town average is about 12 of all towns in Alberta. So a little bit under the town, and comparable sized town is about 7. So you're right in the middle between comparable sized town and the town average overall. So right in the range where you'd expect to be. So this is good. So overall, we're looking, none of these indicators would say anything is, nothing is bad. You're in good financial shape. You have solid reserves. Income's looking well. There's some debt taken out for income generating purposes. And if we're adjusting for that ARO, that non-cash potential future liability, we're looking great. So there's no concerns for me to bring to your attention to say that these are showing any bad trends of any sort. The last couple things we'll hit quickly for you. We run through the management letter, which said we had no significant issues to bring to your attention. And so thank you for your team for their assistance as always through. They're great to work with. In the post-audit letter, we found no illegal acts or fraud. We had no disagreements with management and no difficulties during the audit. And there are some changes happening next year, which will make Councillor Monteith very happy. The financial statements are changing their presentation next year. So the specifics that will be happening next year, which I don't know if they will be more understandable or not. So the liabilities will be separated into 2 categories. So we'll have non-financial and financial, much like the assets. So I don't think that's helping anything. The statement of financial position will be restructured to show total assets, total liabilities, and we'll have net assets again. So we'll have a separate statement now of net financial assets or net debt. So that statement will be changing, which will be great. So we won't have to show net debt on the statement of financial position will be a separate statement. And then the statement of cash flows will have some minor changes as well. So it's nothing significant. I don't think it's anything that's going to bring us back to where we could understand the statements, but there are changes happening to the statements. The conceptual framework is also changing, so there's going to be more guidance and clarity in the current framework, so maybe that will help. I don't know what that guidance and clarity is at this point in time, but that will be in effect right away. And the last of the changes will be going concern. At this point in time, we discuss with management what the going concern, if you believe we're going to be able to continue on to the future. We have that discussion as of December 30th, and that will now change to today's date. We would have that same discussion earlier today or after this meeting to ensure that nothing material has happened between December 31st and the date of your presentation that would deem you not able to continue on as a viable entity into the future. So the date of the discussion will change, so nothing significant, but we'll have an extra discussion, that's all. And those are your changes. Questions, comments, concerns, anything of the sort?
Yeah, questions for council? Any observations? Councillor Monteith?
It wouldn't be a presentation if I wasn't complaining about the 15 pages of notes, most of which are half a page long and no one can understand.
Yes, they are formatted statements required by the government to be in that set standard prescribed mode, and they are not easily understandable. The information you get from management on a regular basis, your comparison to budget for operating and capital, far more understandable, far more useful than these statements would be. This is a formality we have to present in this position, the same as the financial information return, which is submitted to the government. Same financial statement format. So your regular internal reporting is very much what you rely on and is much easier to understand than what you're seeing here.
Most of the time where there's a formatted government statement, it's a separate set of statements, not the financial statement. So that the financial statement is somewhat understandable. This is the exact opposite.
Correct. I believe it probably comes from the government wanting it to be that way so that you can't understand up top and then it all gets consolidated in. It's my guess, not fact by any means. But if it's less understandable, you have less questions potentially.
Are you considering a revolt or something, Councillor Monteith?
I'm just glad I'm retired.
Any other questions regarding the audit? I do want to thank the administration for, again, another successful audit, and thank you for putting all the numbers together, and hopefully we don't hear from municipal affairs. So if there's no other questions, we will approve the audited statements under consideration of the delegations we've had. If there are any questions, then please ask now. Well,
Perhaps could I just make a comment? Yes, I can agree that not everyone here at this table is going to understand all of the details of this audited report. However, personally, I am impressed with the details about our town that you know and have considered and are very aware of. You speak of those as though you spent a lot of time with these numbers, and so there's no difficulty in trusting that your review, your audit, is accurate. And so I appreciate that. Yes, we all have a varying degree of understanding of the statements, and I too would like to commend our administration for working with us over the year in helping us to understand those. And I think that as a council, we do have enough of an understanding, in some cases a very good understanding of the financial statements, so that we can be assured that the town's on good footing. So I just appreciate your efforts and the professionalism that you bring to the table.
I might also add that the use of the municipal indicators is always helpful, right? Instead of the cold, hard financial statements, it's always nice to know where you sit against other municipalities, and so I do appreciate that. Even some of those graphs, so we're still a little hard to understand, but it does help. Certainly, it helps the layperson go through those much easier than the cold, hard financials. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have to give credit to management. We make very little journal entries. If there's two, I think that's it. So the information you're getting on a regular basis is very good, and we don't have concerns that you're being misled through the year or anything of this sort. You are getting the good numbers throughout the year. So there are municipalities that is not the case, but here you're definitely getting good quality information on a regular basis. So yes, management's doing wonderful.
That's very good to hear. Thank you for that comments too. And that emphasizes our appreciation for staff and their work. Anything else? And if not, then we'll go on to our second delegation for tonight. Thank you, Calvin, for coming out. And you didn't need something signed now, did you? No, it'll come online. Sure. Perfect. All right, thank you. Have a great day. All right, our second delegation for tonight, we want to welcome Tyson Knopf to present to council, and we look forward to hearing from you. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. As many of you know, I'm Tyson Knopf. It's good to see your faces again. One thing that stood out to me while reviewing the bee and chicken bylaw recently is that the town allows backyard beekeeping and chickens, but there are currently no registered beekeeper licenses being issued in the town. And so I did a bit of a deeper dive to understand why that might be. So I wanted to come forward and ask whether the current fee structure might be part of the reason why. So when we look at the town current bylaw that we have, there's 2 beehives per household and up to 5 hens that they're allowed per household. The fee structure for bees is $50 per year for those 2 hives and $50 a year for 5 chickens. So the framework is good, but the focus I'm looking at is more the fee structure. So on March 9th, I called the town office and spoke with Jerry Jo Atwood, and she confirmed that there's no bee licenses currently issued at that time on March 9th, and there are currently 2 pending chicken licenses. They're waiting for their chicks to arrive. So right now the program is basically not being used, and the fee may be acting as a barrier more than just a regulation. And so when we kind of consider, if you're to keep chickens or honeybees, what is the impact of that fee? On average, 5 hens produce about 120 eggs per year. That comes to, for $50, that would be 23 dozen eggs. So 20% of their production would be going towards that $50 fee. When we consider that with beekeeping, 180 pounds per year is an average produced by 2 hives. And if we consider that $50 fee, that's the equivalent of 18 pounds of honey production. So 10% of overall production. And that's before the bee feed and equipment and maintenance, which is a very significant cost. If you're in beekeeping, you realize that that 10% is actually quite significant for us. Now, if you compare this with other bylaws, animal bylaws, I looked at the dog licensing. For spayed and neutered dogs, it's $20 per year. For unspayed or neutered dog, it's $40 per year, what you're charging. That includes enforcement and all the services that go with that, which are quite a lot more significant than bees and chickens. When we look at beekeeping, it's minimal municipal involvement. It's mostly provincially regulated. So all any kind of hive inspections, that's all covered by provincial services. The other point looking at is, is a higher fee causing a lower service? I looked at some of the other towns and what they're charging. One example was Okotoks. They're charging a $50 one-time fee. Bonnyville doesn't charge a fee at all. And looking at some of the others, they charge on average between $30 and $35, depending on the size of the municipality. So there's a range that exists across Alberta. Now, I'm not asking for a decision tonight. I do direct administration to review comparative municipalities and bring back some options. Some of those options could include lower annual fee or a one-time fee, or keep it as it justified. So right now the program exists, but it's not being used. A small adjustment could improve participation and compliance, and that aligns well with Fort Macleod's agricultural roots. And it really goes towards making a healthier community. We have a healthy budget. I'm proposing that we include a bit more of a healthy community as well. And then I do ask, when the program isn't being used, would it make sense to explore a different fee model? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Does council have any questions for the presenter? I think the one question I was going to ask is, do you know of anyone attempting, you or administration know of anyone that's looking but hasn't because they felt the cost was too high? So you have it.
We don't have any record of people who have come up and, at least to the town, told us that the fee is too high. We are aware that there are probably at least 16 to 20 houses that have chickens that haven't registered them. And so whether the fee is stopping them or just how much we are, going and knocking on those doors, that's something that you see more in the spring and summer. But yeah, I was not too long ago privy to a conversation on the sidelines of the soccer field where a number of our wonderful residents were talking about all their chickens. And when they noticed I was standing there, they jokingly said, "Oh, time to change the subject." So there are people with chickens. We don't know exactly the reasons why they're not registering them, but yeah, they do exist.
So as far as that knows, to Dyson, do you have any insights?
Can you hear me now? There we go. So as far as beekeeping, I don't know any of any other beekeepers keeping bees in town. In the surrounding community, I do know. Like, I keep bees myself out in Orton. I would love to keep bees in my backyard here, but at $50, it makes more sense to do it for free out in Orton. It does cost me some time traveling back and forth, but it's in my in-laws' place where they're often. I do know the honey here tastes better. My first year here, we did have bees in our backyard, and the honey is significantly a lot more floral. It tastes a lot better, and I'd be happy to sample it out to council to try. But I do not know of any other beekeepers. Also, the community of beekeeping, we don't have any. There is no tied network of beekeeping like there is when I was living in BC. We had a beekeeping club when I was in Kelowna where beekeepers could come together. Alberta doesn't have that. They used to have one in Lethbridge prior to COVID, and then after COVID, nothing was started up again. So there's no networked community of beekeepers in Alberta or in our surrounding community of Southern Alberta.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions for the presenter? If not, we can have a discussion under consideration of the delegation as well. We can add that as another agenda item. This wasn't on. But yeah, we want to thank you for presenting to council, and we look forward to discussing it tomorrow. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to delegation, consideration of delegation. We have the first one with our audited financial statements. Anyone wishing to make a motion to approve the 2025 audited financial statements as presented? Councillor Monteith makes the motion. Any discussion, further discussion on the audited statements? No one wants to drill down and get into the details more. Councillor Monteith.
I would just follow up with what Calvin said. We are very, very, not lucky is not the word, but privileged that we have 2 CPAs working in the town office. That makes a tremendous difference in terms of what the financial information we get. And so I don't think we should ever forget that because most places don't.
Duly noted and appreciated for sure. If there's no further discussion on the audited statement motion, we'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And to our second consideration of delegations, is there any thoughts on the presentation? I think the recommendation is to at least review the bylaw and whether there's any opportunity to make some adjustments. Is that something council wishes to do? And if so, a motion to that end would be good. Councillor Monteith?
Information's never bad, but just my recollection of we didn't do this bylaw to encourage people to do chickens and bees. We did it to regulate those that wanted to. So looking at saying that we're not encouraging it, I say, yes, we're not encouraging it. But, because that wasn't the purpose of the bylaw. It was to regulate what was happening or what could happen. So, but I'm not against getting information because there's nothing wrong with information. But I'm not in a big hurry to change anything. But that's my opinion.
Very good, thank you. Anyone wishing to make a motion on this topic? Councillor Ward? Councillor Poitras?
Yeah, I would move to ask administration to look into other communities and comparable bylaws and see if our fee structure is out of line or not.
CEO Burdette, is that, any comments on that? It's reasonable to just.
That's
look
a
at
reasonable request. I know when we did do this, there was some comparatives, but yeah, we can definitely take a look at what's out there.
We're about 2 years in, 1 year in? It's gotta be close to 2 years.
Almost 2, yeah. Yeah, and so I think one thing too, as it is, I mean, it's not that new, but as far as this spring coming up, and all of the people that we may have suspicions that have chickens, right? Like, I think that's good to gather some more information and see what's stopping them from registering. So while we look at some comparatives, we can also, do a little bit more collecting of local information as well.
Okay, very good. All right, so the motion is on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion? Are we clear on the motion? I think it's basically to do a review and report back to council. If that is good, then we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And as requested, we'd like to go into an in-camera session before we get into our new business items. So I can't imagine it taking more than 10 minutes in camera. So a motion from council go in camera for one in-camera item. Councillor Fox makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. we good? All right, thank you for that in-camera discussion. I'd like to call for a motion to come out of in-camera. Councillor Patel makes a motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to new business, we have bylaw 2019, which is the mill rate bylaw. And we'd like to ask our Director of Finance, Chris Holbeck, to present this bylaw to us.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Good evening, Council. Tonight, for your viewing pleasure, first up is our 2026 mill rate bylaw. For those of you who haven't seen a mill rate bylaw before, it's fascinating. I will just go over some of the highlights. Tonight, we're just going to give it first reading, and then it will come back to Council on the 27th of April for second and third readings, and then it will be final. So some overviews. I didn't make a fancy slideshow or anything else. So when council met, the assessment is up. Our residential assessment was up an average of 8.3%. Our non-residential assessment was up 7.7% on average. So council met, looked over the assessment, looked over the deficit that was in the budget, and made some changes to the mill rates for 2026, both for residential and non-residential properties. So council reduced the municipal residential mill rate 6%. So it went from 5.55 mils in 2025 to 5.22 mils in 2026. This means that an average residential property worth $291,000 would have paid $1,614 less in municipal taxes last year. So then when you estimate an average residential increase of the 8.3% that I talked about, this property's assessment in 2026 would be about $315,000. Based on the lower municipal mill rate that council is proposing in this bylaw. The property's overall taxes, so this includes municipal, education, and lodge taxes, so the whole tax amount would increase by $120.50 per year. So that's for the full year, $120. I have an example on the submission regarding non-residential properties also. So council is, in this mill rate, we are proposing a decrease in the non-residential mill rate of 1.5%. So that means that the non-residential mill rate in 2026 would be 11.53 mils versus 11.71 last year. So an example of this one is an average non-residential property of $449,000 would have paid about $5,200 last year in municipal taxes. When you estimate in an average non-residential assessment increase of the 7.7 that I mentioned, this property's 2026 assessment would be about $483,000. So based on the lower non-residential municipal mill rate that council is proposing, this property's overall taxes, so including education and lodge, would increase by about $315 in 2026. So those are just based on an average residential or non-residential assessment. So mileage may vary based on how someone's assessment has changed from 2025 to 2026, but the municipal mill rates that we have proposed are lower for both residential and non-residential improved properties. The other big change to notice in this year's mill rate bylaw is that council has chosen to increase vacant property mill rates. So this is for both residential and non-residential vacant properties. Both classes of assessment, the mill rates would be increased by 12.5%. So for residential, that means a vacant residential property, the mill rate would go to 6.24 mils from 5.55 mils, and a non-residential property would go to 13.17 mils from 11.71 mils. Other than that, I guess the biggest thing for council to see out of this, as we've seen in our budget, is the increase in our assessment in 2026. With all the mill rate changes, both education, lodge, and municipal, results in about an additional $479,000 of taxes for municipal use, so that's just for us. The majority of that increase flows right back out the door with tax incentives, both non-residential and multi-unit residential tax incentives applications, and estimates of how much would be incentivized this year has increased also. And then the last small little tweak, I guess, in the mill rate bylaw for this year is that the minimum tax increased about 3%, so it's up to $380 from $370 some last year. So those are the highlights of the 2026 mill rate bylaw, and I would take questions if council has any. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any questions regarding the mill rate bylaw?
Not necessarily a question, Mayor Fader, but just to point out, and we all know this and we've beaten this drum heavily, but on that average $315,000 assessed residential property, the increase is $120, but I think it's important council point out that only $29 of that is actually a municipal increase. The remainder is school foundation and seniors housing, so.
Any other comments, questions, even thoughts, comments on the presentation that will go out with the tax? I think that's going to be after second and third reading, of course, right? Yep. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Ward?
Perhaps for those who might be viewing, you just might explain what constitutes a vacant property, both residential and non-residential.
So for our purposes, a vacant property is a property that doesn't have a structure on it. So if you have paved a vacant property and it's a parking lot, that is still a vacant property for assessment purposes. If you've fenced a property and you're keeping your company's goods and services, or not services, your goods or equipment on that property as part of your business, that's still considered a vacant property for non-residential purposes. For residential purposes, if you own 2 lots side by side and you've got it fenced as one property and you've got a large yard, if it's not consolidated into the main parcel, that extra piece is a vacant property and it will be taxed as such. So we've sent out letters to all vacant residential and non-residential property owners, just clarifying the change in the subclasses and that there could be a potential for mill rate increases in this year's mill rate bylaw. And we had a few questions. Some people didn't realize that their extra big yard on their house wasn't consolidated into the main parcel. So we had conversations with anyone who called with questions regarding the letter. So I believe we've been quite forthright and clear and tried to explain to anyone who's had questions about it. I've sent out some information to the CAO regarding which properties may or may not be impacted with this rate change, because a lot of the properties, their assessment value still keeps them so that they're just paying minimum tax because the vacant land is worth, their assessed value is so low. So we've tried our best to do some good communication and be very forthcoming with explaining and having conversations with vacant property owners, and we will continue to do so until second and third reading. Hope that helped. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I believe we had the motion on the floor, correct? Do we have a motion? No? Wasn't sure. So if I can request a motion for first reading of bylaw 2019, Councillor Monteith, and that would include, would it, a public hearing? Or is there no public, no public hearing? Okay. So bylaw, it's still first reading. Is there any other questions on bylaw 2019? Seeing none, we can request, call a motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And next step would be coming to council next meeting for second and third reading. Correct. Okay. All right, moving on to item 2, non-residential tax incentives. We will be moving ahead with a motion on 3 of the 4 items, and then I will declare pecuniary interest, and our deputy mayor will stand for the fourth one. So we'll separate this one into 2 motions. I will call for a motion from council to approve as per the recommendation for the 3 items with the exception of number 2. So that would be item 1, which is 818 18th Street, which I believe is the new Dollarama. Is that correct? And then Clean Machine, they have a small shop, and Fort Crawl on the main road. Anyone prepared to make a motion on those 3 items? Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any further discussion or questions? See over that.
Did council wish to have Chris explain at all any of this before we get into that?
Yes, we can. I think we're pretty familiar, but I think it's good to highlight it just for those listening as well. Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. I'll just go over it quickly. So our non-residential tax incentive program has been in place since 2021. It's been well received by business owners who want to expand or do new construction within our municipality. This year, we had 4 applications. They've all met the criteria and the rules under the non-residential tax incentive bylaw. So they are coming forward tonight for approval. And I always do an estimate. I have these beforehand, and I have a spreadsheet and I do an estimate. And then once we've kind of tweaked the mill rate, I know kind of how much would be paid back to these companies over the 3-year cycle. So I have a running total, so I always have a pretty good estimate in the budget, so no worries about that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you for that. Any other questions, comments? All right, so I'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried, and I will pass the chair over to Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so moving forward, we have one more item on the non-residential tax incentive agreements. That would be for the new Forma Steel Structural Truss building. Is anybody willing to make a motion on that? Councillor Monteith, any comments, question, or debate? I see none. All those in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you for that. Moving on to item 3 under new business, we have similar multi-use residential tax incentive. And again, we'll ask our Director of Finance, Chris Holbeck, to highlight this before we entertain the motion.
Thank you again, Mayor Fader. So the second one on the agenda is for multi-unit residential tax incentive applications. we are recommending that the first one, Market Property Corp., that one be approved for the 4-year cycle. And then that the second one that's on your submission be deferred until the next council meeting. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Patel makes a motion. Any questions on the incentive program or the details of this agreement?
I do have one.
Councillor Patience?
Yeah, I'm just curious, and since I wasn't around when these bylaws were designed, for the non-residential component, it's a 175-50% reduction over a 3-year period. So why the difference with the multi-residential where it's a 4-year reduction? Was there some logic to that?
Was there some science behind it? If I recall the conversation, I think they want, for multifamily, we wanted a little bit more than what we did for non-res, but you have other council members here, Burdette?
Yeah, some of that came down. Chris hated it, for the record. She thought it should be exactly the same. But it came back at the time when we were desperate for housing, and that was some of the feedback that came from some of the developers, and it was eventually what we went with because of some of the feedback for those who were looking to develop, and they thought that that was reasonable. They actually wanted more, but that's what we settled with.
Any other questions on the motion? I will then call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to item 4, which is a NRCB information item. I think it's a similar request to ones we've had in the past. Does Director of Operations have any further comments you want to make on this one?
Just one comment. So just some background. The application is to construct a calf barn, 44 individual small manure storage pits, and a transfer pit. And there is no increase in animal numbers in this proposal.
Yeah, the way I read it, it looked like it was just the building as part of their full plan that's already been approved. So it's not necessarily any changes to what they originally were planning to do. They're actually doing it now. Okay. So I believe the motion would be to accept this information with no
Can I ask
comment.
one thing though?
Yeah.
And I know there's ways to find this, but when we see these applications like from the MD or from the NRCB, et cetera, like, I don't know where this is. Like, if we could somehow, Brendan, just do a satellite.
You should just know that, I'm pretty sure.
I'm playing a little devil's advocate here because the common person,
I have the same problem.
common person doesn't know where this is at all. And if
You
we
get
could just
land
get
title
a
descriptions.
satellite map just showing like where this is in proximity, since it's involved with our.
Yeah. Did you want a little description now?
Yeah, it'd be helpful, I think.
Miranda, are you able to pull it up on a map quick? Google Maps probably just as easy. So you north, where the old McNally pit is, it's just past the pit and then straight north.
Okay.
It's along the Willow Creek there. So it is outside of town boundaries, obviously, but
Because it's within our IDP area.
yeah.
So, and just, yeah, for anyone following this, they would have no idea, right, where,
It's that area right there.
yeah.
Yeah. This town boundary is 1 mile west or east. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. It would just be helpful to
Yeah,
me
no, that's
anyway,
good.
and I'm sure others that.
Yeah.
If I could just make a comment as well.
Sure.
As I reviewed that, I would be, and maybe that's not, it's not information that we have, but I would be interested to know what the difference might be as a result of this change. Obviously, they're handling their manure storage pits are being made. Perhaps it's an improvement to how they're currently handling that. I don't know. So I was just, if there was some information that would let us know what's the perceived changes that we might experience here in town as a result of, this application.
I would have to assume if they're building a shelter, that's going to help them control a little bit of more of the environmental controls of the area, that it would only benefit the neighbors. But there's a lot of reading material on this application. It's went through a pretty tense time last term because of the opposition that their neighbors were getting. So yeah, there is a lot of information regarding this specific project. Like I said, I think it's based on what I read, it's part of the original application. It's just they're building it out, in the actual building.
Yeah, I'm speaking more towards when such a piece of information comes before council. It would be helpful if you say there is a lot of information available. There's those of us on council who haven't been exposed to that information, wouldn't know where to access that information. So even if there was a little bit of an explanation so that we can better understand what is being presented to us for information would be appreciated, if that falls within the purview of administration's role.
CEO Burdette.
Yeah, on this specific application, administration didn't anticipate any changes. Like, we didn't look in to see what the difference between, putting in this building would have. But that is, we can take that as a note for future considerations that happen in the IDP to just get a, good understanding of the potential effect, if any. Obviously, when the first application that came through was quite significant, going from 2,500 to 16,000, I believe, was the head of cattle increase. And that one obviously had a lot more publicity, but yeah, we didn't anticipate any changes that we could see from this.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. If there's no further discussion, it basically would be accepting this information with no comment, correct? Randa?
The motion to be requested is that they instruct administration to send a letter to the NRCB addressing the IDP version date and the zoning of the land within 1.5 miles of the proposed site as requested. That's a recommended motion.
Okay.
But we wouldn't have anything to say in that letter. Like, we can give them the communication, but we wouldn't have any comments from admin or from council.
Yeah, if we don't have any comments, I don't think they're looking for a letter from us. So unless we're in opposition or have questions, I think we can.
We would just let them know that we're fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, the letter would be just that there are no concerns, but
Yeah.
I believe that with recommendation, it needs to have the letter.
Sure.
Even just say no comment.
So motion as per the recommendation with the details of the application and that the town has no further comments. Motion is on the floor. We'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And moving on to item 5, which is referral. I believe a similar scenario. And we will ask our Director of Operations to perhaps highlight the location as well and what this includes.
So we'll just start with the description. So yes, this is for information. There's a development. It will be a 1,222 square foot dwelling with an attached garage as well as a front covered deck. I was actually trying to look and where that's located. I'd have to look up that as well. I mean, there is a map, but actually finding that location.
I couldn't find the house on their application either. Like where it would actually be located on the property. Not like it matters too much to us. That's the large plot, yes. So it's a Center Trail venue. There's a lot of weddings out there. Yes. I wonder why we're getting This one, for example, because people have built houses in the MD and within the 2 mile. We've not gotten those ones, so I was curious why we would have got this one.
Kelly had explained that just because the Center Trail venue has a, I don't remember exactly what they, some kind of rec zoning to it. I don't remember exactly what they have it in the MD of Willow Creek, but that's only the reason why this one is coming to us, where a normal home application would never come to us.
Personally, where they put it on the property, I don't think really makes a difference to us and how they do it. It's the MD, they could have put a house on that property instead of the venue as well, so. Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, a motion to accept this information. With no further comments, Councillor Fox makes that motion. Is everyone clear on the details? If there's no further discussion, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to our last item, Councillor Orr requested this pulled from the consent agenda, and this is regarding the public safety response that we got. Councillor Orr, would you like to speak to that?
I just thought, given the conversation we had about this issue, which resulted in a letter being sent, which asked a number of specific questions, the letter that we received in return doesn't address those questions too much. It could have been a form letter, and so I just thought that it might be worth our while as a council at some point in the not too distant future to just have a discussion about that letter and see and determine whether or not we want to respond to the minister's letter. So that's all that I was looking for on that.
So your recommended motion would be to defer this conversation to a future committee of the whole, perhaps, for further discussion?
Yes, that would be consistent with what I was looking for.
And I think the bottom line we're looking for is just making sure that the questions and concerns we had is where does the increases stop? Because right now they're ranging from 22 to 30%. Does it keep going in that trajectory, or does it go to what level after that? So I think that's largely our problem, so we can start figuring out what we need to do.
Well, that would certainly be one of the issues that we need to discuss and see if we can't nail them down. There may be others that might come up with council, given their response.
So the Councillor Orr made the motion to defer to a future committee of the whole for further council discussion. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Monteith?
There must be a course that provincial and federal politicians make so that when they write letters, they don't say anything. Because this is so similar to the letter we got back from the post office. Like 2 pages of saying nothing and doesn't answer the question, like, drives me nuts.
Duly noted. All right, you haven't been in that course then, yeah, right? No? We will then call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We will now move on to administrative reports, of which we always appreciate reading through, and we'd ask our CEO Burdett to lead us on that one.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thanks, Mayor and Council. Yes, we have our director reports today, so we'd like to get started, as I'd like to be the new routine to go last. So we'll start with our Director of Operations.
Thank you. So you have the report from operations in front of you. Looking at what's gone on in the last 3 months, just on a high level, I was told that things slowed down in the winter. That was not the case. And we've actually had some pretty good weather. So there are some good work that we've done. Maybe just highlighting a couple things with our. Thanks, Miranda. With safety, so you have some numbers in front of you. some different graphs just highlighting some of the things that we're starting to track and trying to track better so that we're looking at those things and can be focused on them. Just kind of moving through unless you have any questions. Looking at, sorry, just here with we did have our OH&S officer for the municipality come in early, I believe it was January. We did another inspection on one of our departments. And we have closed out all notices to produce and those reports. So I think there was some really good involvement from the crews. There was some good pushes in those areas, and so really just a call out to everybody that's been supporting that program and supporting to making sure that we're following the things that we should be doing and trying to keep our teams safe. There are some projects, and you can look at those if you have any questions. These are some of the higher level projects that we're tracking, as well as the capital projects and things that we do kind of operationally as we go throughout the year. If there's any questions on those. Then we start getting into the individual departments. So Public Works, like I said, we've had some fairly good weather. There have been some activity that aren't normally done with Public Works. We've been working on some back alley work, as well as some work on the roads in the cemetery, those kinds of things, as well as the normal activities that we're doing during the winter. With plants, we have had some concerns with some of our equipment with plants and some concerns with some of the things that are coming through the sewer pipes. So we have been dealing with that. We've gotten some good feedback from some of the businesses that we've been working with. So we really appreciate that we're able to look at those things and then try to make corrections. Planning and development, there are a lot of notes in here. One thing that is highlighted on the Dollarama is open. The communication tower that we talked about issued a concurrence letter, and then the Safety Codes Council internal audit, that's actually at 100% and that has been submitted. And then there's the details as have been requested of what's gone on in those first 3 months. With Parks and Facilities, some movement again on one of our bigger projects with the arena. A lot of prep went into that to make sure that everything was ready for that construction. So some good work on that, as well as making sure that the arena was open to those using those facilities. And then last, just some numbers from our service tracker, which is our program where we can put in essentially tickets for the town. That can come from the residents of the town. They can put in tickets, as well as internally we use this to track some of the items that we're pushing through to make sure that they get done. So again, kind of heavy in the Public Works and the waste and recycle collection. So we make sure that we're trying to track those things and getting to completion. Any questions?
Any questions from council on Director of Operations report? That's a lot of activity.
Yeah, they lied when they told you it was slow in the winter. April 22nd, approximate start date for the River Valley paved path. Is that still a?
So that it'll probably be into early May. And even into the middle of May. What we're actually waiting for now is for the asphalt factories to start producing material. We did have an initial meeting, I believe that was last week, just to look at the scope and kind of do a walk down of the path. So that has taken place, and so we're prepped in that area. But yeah, it'll probably be kind of early to mid-May is what we have now. So we don't have a firm date on that, but that's the expectation.
So no construction currently taking place down there. So I did send council some photographs I was sent this afternoon of what appears to be bike jumps and a path being dug out just off the main path, just on the other side of the wooden bridge. So you and I can have a discussion afterwards, but that's a bit concerning to me that someone would go down there and literally dig new paths in and build jumps right off the main trail in that area of that park. So I wanted to confirm no construction was taking place there.
Yep, nothing from the town.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is concerning. I don't know. I get why they'd want to do it, but without permission is pretty brazen. Right, Director of Finance. Besides the audit.
I know. You're just about done with me this month. It's a pretty busy month with me doing all the submissions. So for mine, all I really wanted to highlight was the second one under taxation, that no tax recovery auction will be required in 2026 as all properties have paid or made payment agreements with the town of Fort Macleod. So we will not be having a tax recovery auction this year. And I've been, as per Councillor Orr's request, I've been kind of documenting the tax recovery process system and how much things cost based on how the cycle goes. So I'm gonna wait, and I'll wait till it gets to be a full year, and then I'm gonna present that, like how much the property owners are paying if they get into the tax recovery cycle. So I thought it was fun information. So that's all I had to highlight. We're just gonna get through April and get the taxes out the door. So thank you.
I'm trying to find it, but I thought I seen something in one of the reports about using AI for some planning purposes. Was that in finance? I'm just wondering if the town has developed already an AI policy and its use.
We have not developed an AI policy entirely yet. Nope.
I know it's been talked about a little bit at Alberta Southwest, but it might be worth. It's not to be scared of AI. It's more or less how we're going to use it, right? So, yeah, I thought I'd seen somewhere in here about looking at AI for something, but maybe
That was in my report. We were looking at AI for some call reception and after hours call reception stuff.
Right. Community and Protective Services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For me, I just kind of to highlight an actual change for HR and payroll. We did have 3 positions being filled with facilities. We're now looking for one more mower, one more beautification, and still 1 public works laborer. So we dropped 1, had a change of plans, and so isn't going to be working for us this season. So we still have some openings there. So if you know anyone that's over 16 and can drive, send them and tell them to put their resume in. We're still looking for a few seasonal staff. And then the other thing that I just wanted to highlight, because there's a lot of change that comes with it, is our requirements for the privacy management program with the changes for the Protection of Privacy Act and the Information Act, which used to be our FOIP legislation. As a FOIP coordinator, there's a lot of changes that have come in now for the access to information, and we have some timelines and provincial guidelines and templates that have been put out that we're working with and updating lots of policy and procedure, but it is a lot of researching and it's taking a lot of time, so that'll be a big focus over the next month or so to make sure those are all in place. We have a deadline of June, I can't remember the exact date in June, but yeah, June to have that all complete and in place. So that's a big one. And then I just want to highlight our bylaw officer and his ability to work well with our utilities clerk and anybody actually in the office that needs something done or for him to work with. He cooperates well with everybody and helps out departments really well, and just, you know, puts his efforts out there as we need them. And he's taken on a lot of incidents this month, or in the past quarter, sorry, as well as helping other departments out. And so he's just been doing a great job at that, and we're happy to have him, and want to just kind of shout out for him and appreciate his efforts there.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Lisa? Councillor Patience.
Yeah, a couple of quick ones. I made some notes, just a couple of items. One was the patio, Main Street patio program, and when that was coming back to council, because I'm sure it's going to be a timely issue. I'll let you answer that one first.
Sure. So Daniela is actually taking on this program now as Economic Development Coordinator, but we have had word from Brooks that they are willing to do that again. So there's a submission being prepared to come to council. I believe the next meeting we're going to try and get it on the agenda for. So Daniela will speak more to that at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. And the last one was in reading about discussions with the curling club on their contract, amending the contract. I'd had some discussions with members of the curling club, and I guess my first question is that something that's coming to council fairly soon?
Typically, operations agreements won't necessarily come back to council, so I don't anticipate that it will, but we can have a conversation with Anthony about that and go from there.
Well, I'm surprised that wouldn't come to council, actually. So my question really was, I was quite surprised to find out that the curling club was being asked to contribute to capital, and skating clubs and swing clubs and minor hockey aren't asked to contribute to capital.
We can certainly have a more detailed conversation at perhaps a committee of the whole or something about that.
That would be great. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for the Director of Community Services, Councillor Ward?
Yeah, I would just like to commend, as I read through the key enforcement areas, there seems to be a real effort to work with our community to bring them to compliance using diplomacy, but not being lax on enforcing and getting people up to compliance. And so I appreciate that approach, and I'm glad to hear that our enforcement officer is succeeding on that front. And yeah, so I appreciate that.
Okay, very good. Economic development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This past quarter, we applied to the Rural Entrepreneur Stream under the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, and we're excited to announce that Fort Macleod has been accepted as a participating community under the Rural Entrepreneur Stream. So this means that going forward, we can endorse qualified entrepreneurs who make a significant investment into our community for provincial nomination, which means that it might help them when they apply for their PR card. I also wanted to mention that a few weeks ago I attended the Southern Alberta Tourism and Economics Summit, and Fort Macleod, and specifically the Queen's Hotel restoration project, were notably mentioned several times by different event speakers. So that was really exciting and just great to see our community being recognized throughout the region as a growing tourism destination. And since creating this submission, the last two remaining industrial lots on Manning Ave have sold. So we have no more available industrial lots. And we created a wait list on our website for the future southeast industrial lots, which would be near Highway 2. So potential buyers can go to our website and express interest in those lots. And that's it. Thank you.
And I believe the one lot we had for sale in the industrial park also was sold, is that correct?
You're referring to the one on Primrose?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sold as well.
Okay. That's very exciting. That one was listed for how long? 2 years?
Yeah, shortly after I came here, it was listed, so it's been there for a few years.
Yeah. Any other questions for Economic Development Coordinator, Daniela? So there's plenty to do still, I assume? Do you sense at all things busier, communication? I'm just curious if you have any sense of how the business community is. Is there any upward trend, downward trend, or anything like that that you're recognizing?
I think as we move into the spring, we're noticing projects are happening, things are getting busier again. I think that's why we just sold the last few industrial lots.
Okay. Oh, very good. All right. Monsieur Burdette, your
Back
last
to
up.
me. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to my team. It was really appreciated to have Calvin recognize our efforts. And that doesn't just mean, myself and Chris who have something, the financial statements, there's a lot of information that goes into there. Obviously Lisa's information and even Brennan and stuff. So that's appreciated because we have a great team, and so much appreciated. Just a couple of highlights from mine. I've actually really enjoyed having the WA Day school classes come in and the grade 6 classes. Mayor Fader and Councillor Fox have been to a couple of those. Just a great opportunity to connect with our kids in our community, educate them a little bit on the role of municipal government, and it's a blast. It's interesting how different the grade 6 classes can be. Some of them are just in it, other kids are just all quiet. So I really enjoyed that, because sometimes last year I stepped out and didn't really participate in those, but it was nice to participate in them this year. Yeah, we're working obviously on the strategic plan. Got some feedback from Melody that's going to come up in the next future meeting. We're going to meet with council, and things are moving forward to kind of determine our direction. There's been a lot of work that's gone into that. I've been having some great meetings with residents and businesses about the safety of our community and trying to ensure that safety code enforcement and other bylaws are being enforced. Getting some good feedback there. One of the things that has been brought up by council, and just so you know, we're working on it. I was probably in Brennan's report. His report's like 46 pages, but we are looking at the implementation of the Pathway Master Plan and connecting the new McLeod Landing to existing. And so there's a lot of great things there that we've been meeting on and discussing. And the formalization of that's all going to come forward, but things are in the works there as we work kind of on a holistic community view of connecting people as they can walk through our community. Yeah, I just want to highlight the first sale in McLeod Landing of a commercial lot, right? An application there for a strip mall, which is pretty exciting. Lots of things to get, details to come out of that yet, but pretty exciting that, the first one's going in there. And so we're pretty excited that that's going to start, a bit of the, that's the first domino to fall, and the rest will go, soon. Yeah, and then we had some conversations with our neighbors with the ICF recreation agreement. And we're going to continue on working on that. Obviously, that's come to council. And we continue to work with the Empress as we review that agreement and see how we can support them. So yeah, just a few items on my plan there. Also, council motion list is attached. Our team, administration and staff have been working pretty diligently to make sure that motions are dealt with in a timely fashion. The ones that do take longer are usually, development related that, has a more lengthy process. But we do take these quite seriously, and we want to make sure that they're done in a appropriate and timely manner, and that they're done well. So yeah, any questions on my report or on the motion list, we'll try to answer those.
One quick one, just curious how your meeting with the province regarding the barracks site went.
It had been a while since we met with them, and so it was a little bit of a refresher on what had happened last time. So we had discussed last time. They had kind of thought, well, looking at some other possibilities. So it was like, it wasn't amazingly fruitful, but it was like, hey, we're still dealing with this. We'd love for this to become a useful site. We'd love for it to be more active and engaging. Obviously, the fort is this, we'll call them the steward over that site. So I think there's a place for the town and the fort and the province to make better use of it, but it was kind of an initial, hey, let's get back into this discussion. Do you recall anything else, Daniela? That was about it.
Any other questions for Anthony or any of the other directors? I think I was going to ask, phase 3 for McLeod Landing, do we have any updates on when we might want to go pricing out and start collecting deposits?
We don't have an estimated time, like exactly when. I think, we can, one of the parts of, I guess, on phase 1 and 2, it was not impossible, but it does prove a little more challenging the earlier you pre-sale, just as far as even identifiable numbers, because, when you have roll numbers, when you have lot numbers, when everything's been established, it's a lot easier just to, for clarity's sake, like, what am I buying? How does that go through the system? Not impossible, it can be managed, but I have received some feedback from staff that putting them out too early does make it a little more challenging. So we're not quite at that point yet. We are hoping, I know we just met with MPE today, and there, was it in the next week or two, we're supposed to be kind of finalizing the phase 3 plans, and they're hoping to, best case scenario, have some stuff tendering out in the end of this year for deeps. So, yeah. So the short answer to the question, no, we don't have dates is when we're going to start pre-selling. And the other challenge that we ran into is because we pre-sale so early before, we opened up the pre-sale so early, we explained to them that they might not have access for quite a long time because of the whole process. We even explained to them and wrote it into the contract that they wouldn't have shallow utilities until a certain amount of time. But that didn't stop people from forgetting all that information and being upset when their utilities weren't there yet. Some of them even, mentioned taking financial, or taking legal action against us when they looked at their sale contract that says you agreed to move in or to start building before you have services. And so we learned a lot in the first phase, the first 2 phases. And so we do still think pre-selling is important. But we will probably wait a little bit longer so that we can manage the buyer's expectations and manage what we have to get done on our side.
Councillor Monteith.
I'm just wondering, the recycling area down by the river, how often is that picked up?
So we have, right now we have a contract where they're checking on that. So that's our one depot that's actually part of with circular material, that they come and pick that up. So right now they're monitoring it with their drivers and then picking it up. We have noticed, and we're trying to actually right now see if we can have a regular time, because there has been some times when it's been overloaded and there has been some on the sides. So
It was overloaded on the weekend. Like you couldn't get anything in and people were just putting it on the ground and whatever.
Yeah, we do know about that, and we are working to try and get that remedied.
Very good. Any other comments, questions? I think the strat plan's on our committee of the whole meeting for next week. Is that right? Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, a motion to accept the administrative reports as information. Councillor Fox makes that motion. Call the question on favor. Any opposed? Motion is carried, and I don't believe there's any other in camera, so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.